We have Robert in Texas who has a question for me about I was once a believer. So welcome, Robert. How can we help?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, I had a quick thought. Since you were like a Christian for like 25 years, what made you go out and look for evidence instead of like following what you believed that was God and he told you to have faith? What made you go after evidence?
Sure. Understanding skepticism was part of it, but I had a roommate who was an atheist, and I was studying with the hope of becoming a preacher, and I didn't want to wind up in heaven and have God say, hey, why is this roommate of yours who you love like a brother going to hell because you didn't learn how to witness properly? And so I set out to try to figure out how to convince an atheist in order to help save his soul. And in the process, applying skepticism and critical thinking, I discovered that my reasons for believing were fallacious and not good.
And since you were a believer then, why didn't you think it might be the devil throwing like thoughts in your mind or something like that?
Because there isn't evidence for the devil throwing thoughts in my mind either. I don't believe in the devil either. There isn't evidence for it. Not sufficient.
Yeah, but yeah, it was like when you were a believer though, like
yes,
like you were a believer, but it didn't cross your mind that it could have been the devil and stuff.
Of course it crossed my mind, Robert. And when I evaluated it, I found that there wasn't evidence to believe that either.
And I had another like thought, like why God doesn't give people evidence. Like, if
Sure.
you wanted to hear that out.
Sure. Why doesn't God give people evidence?
Well, God does not give evidence like, here, I'm God. Here, there's hell. Here, there's heaven. And I believe that because most people don't want to follow God out of sincerity. Like, I've heard you say before that God is a more thug, for example. And if you believe that, why would you want to follow him if he was real?
So you are literally giving me the answer that I just replied to while you were on hold.
Oh, sorry, I didn't listen.
Yeah. If you had, you would understand why that's an absolute shit argument. And the reason is this. God could God provide evidence that would convince me that he exists?
Yes, but that wouldn't change your heart, though.
No, okay, no. Stop preaching bullshit about what would change my heart. I asked if God could present evidence that would convince me he existed, and you correctly said yes. And so if God did that, then I would absolutely believe that God existed, though I may not worship or follow him.
Yeah. Exactly.
You said, yeah, exactly.
Correct. Yeah, got it.
So why wouldn't God do it? Because if he exists and he convinces me he exists, all of a sudden this show becomes moot. All of a sudden the thousands of people whose minds have been changed because of this now have something impressive to look at.
Yeah. I wish God would do that, but he doesn't. And
why?
And like even if you like seeing like if you think of a God that he's so evil and he does a bunch of wrong things that you don't
I don't think he exists. I don't think he's evil because I don't think he exists. I think the character in your storybook is evil. But why won't God reveal himself? Why is he hiding?
Yeah, I have those questions too.
Yeah. And how many times, Robert, how many times have you sincerely cried out to God for help and gotten no answer?
Quite a few times.
Yeah. How many times have you gotten an answer?
None.
Yeah. That's why I'm an atheist. And the second somebody presents good evidence for a God, I'll stop being an atheist. I may not worship that God because if there's a God out there, you believe there's a God, I don't. And if there's a God out there, he's fucking us both over all the time by playing his hide and seek. And if you're right, then you are actively believing in a God who is screwing you over and screwing me over and being an ass. And if I'm right, then you just bought into the same story that I bought into, and everybody on the planet, or most of the people on the planet, have bought into ridiculous stories, either about gods or the supernatural. And I just wish that people would start asking the questions that help them out of it, because my life has improved dramatically in many ways since giving up religion. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of your God. I'm not afraid of your devil. I'm not afraid of any of that. If I don't think your God exists, I don't think the devil exists. I'm not worried about consequences. And I really wish that others like you would find a way so that you don't have to worry about those consequences either. That's what organizations like Recovering from Religion are for. That's the reason we do this show. But I thank you for the question and the call, and hopefully it gave you something to think about, Robert.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, man. All right, Jim.
Yeah, that brings up, some questions like, why does God ban eating of shellfish and not slavery? That there's a whole bunch of things that God does that if we apply the standard that you and I use, and I think I say happiness, you say well-being, I think they're the same thing. If we apply that standard to God, there's a number of things that he does and says that don't move the goalpost towards that, and move the goalpost directly away from it. And so what is his goal then? What is he trying to achieve? It's not human happiness. What is he trying to achieve? And is it a worthwhile goal? And he doesn't seem to even be able to answer that particular question.
I get it. And it's frustrating. And I have a lot of empathy for Robert and people like him, because that's kind of where I was. Only I was fortunate in the sense that when I really dug in on these topics, stuff started just making sense to me, because I understood the burden of proof. I understood the nature of evidence. I understood skepticism, critical thinking, because I was a skeptic long before I applied skepticism to my religious beliefs. But